Hey everybody, I wanted to just drop in briefly and share a little something out of Proverbs 25, verse 28. I'm going to read real quick. This is the ESV. It says, "A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls." A man without self-control is like a city that's broken into and left without walls. I want you to think about something really quickly, and as you maybe go back and watch this again, I want you to think about life and all of the many possibilities that we have. You got positive and you got negative possibilities. The text that we're looking at, it reveals two possible outcomes. So first, it's possible for you and I to live a well-ordered life, fruitful, flourishing, having self-control, and without the inner chaos that can come if we're not disciplined, if we're not guarded, if we're not watchful. Here's the key thing. I said the inner chaos. There's enough with the chaos that's without, from beyond ourselves, than to have inner chaos with no peace, no joy, none of the things that help you in this thing called life. That's the first thing. So it's one possibility and one outcome is to live a way that's ordered, self-controlled, fruitful, a life of integrity, character that people look at and say that this person is trustworthy, they're faithful, all of those different things. But it's also possible, and here's the second thing, to be surrounded with chaos from without. Now, this is the chaos that's from without, that's beyond ourselves, but it has made its way in to be surrounded with trouble on all sides and to live ruled by our desires that we ourselves should already have under control. So those are the two possible outcomes. And here's the thing, the text that we're looking at that I just read, that one verse, it focuses on the second of the two possibilities. In other words, what goes wrong when we are not self-controlled, when we're not watchful, when we're not taking care of the needful. My goal is, in so many words, is first for you to consider what this looks like on a practical level for a life of a person who has allowed neglect to set in. Think about anything that has been left in your care and you've neglected it. You haven't taken care of it. You haven't watched over it. You haven't inspected it in such a way that you notice, okay, I need to take care of this. This wasn't there a week ago. This wasn't going on. Whatever the case may be. But I want you to think about how neglect sets in and how that eventually will affect the wall that's in place to protect it. It's the first thing. The second thing is, I want you to think about what ultimately happens when our defenses collapse. When our defenses collapse. All right. First thing, what happens when neglect abounds? That's our part. That's our responsibility. That's our, again, not doing the needful in our lives for whatever it is that has been placed in our care. For those of us who are parents, our children have been placed in our care. What are we doing to make sure that they grow into faithful human beings, trustworthy human beings, and individuals that live a productive life out in society, that when they do leave this place, they're going to leave this place better for the next generation to come? Well, what happens with neglect abounds when we fail to do the needful, right? When you think about it, neglect is a result of our failure in upkeep, right? Taking care of a thing, taking care of a person. And we'll see here that this is dealing with what's going on the inside, our spirit man, our soul, those parts of us that we can't see, not even with a microscope, not with an X-ray. I want you to think about that, because physically we go to the doctor, right, for regular checkups. But here's the thing, our mental and our spiritual health, they need to be well maintained also. Here's the thing, and I think we don't pay attention to this, but it's important. What you do in private will be the fruit that's on display in public. Whatever secret disciplines that you're undertaking, and prayer and study and applying scripture, being mentored by the right type of person, whatever private things you are doing in your own home that other people do not see will show up as the fruit. It'll show up as our character that's on display when we go out in public, right? And notice a while ago I said studying scripture. I didn't just say reading, because studying, you put in more effort. There's reflecting on. It's getting to the bottom of what is actually being said in the text to the original audience, and then I'm applying that to my life right now. So it's a studying and applying, and it's actively applying. It's what I've read today. How can I incorporate it in my life right now? It's not trying to wait, but this being done every day in our life is vital. It's vital for our mental and spiritual health and upkeep. The type of people you have in your corner is critical. The wrong type of person eventually will lead you down the wrong path. You can ignore that. You can pretend like it's not something that you will fall prey to. You can act like, yeah, that sounds good, and that kind of, I feel you in certain circumstances, but we never think that it could be us. That a family member that has a lot of influence would never be able to convince us to do that type of thing, to go to this type of place in our lives that we never planned to go to. Here's the thing. We have to be watchful, because at any moment we could fall, and one decision can mess up your whole entire life. It can set you on a path that looks good, seems good, but like the scripture tells us, that way is destruction, and we don't want to hear it. I'll give you an example with my own personal life. I remember I was 13 when I made the simple decision that I was going to start selling drugs. At the age of 13, I want you to think about that. I know many other people that I grew up around, whether they were older than me or my same age, or even some of them younger than me, that made the decision at a young age too, right? To to do something that was going to open your life up to all kind of things. No matter what type of environment I grew up in, or whoever else grew up in, you open yourself up to something when you begin to make those adult type decisions as a child. And many of us are making decisions today. It may not be something like that, but we're making decisions today that ultimately are going to not only affect our own lives, but it's also going to affect our children. It's going to affect our friendships. It's going to affect our family members. And everybody. But here's the thing. Not only having the right type of people in your corner, but unchecked sin will cripple you. Unchecked sin will cripple your life. Bible Hub says this. It says, sin erodes self-governance, leaving life ungarrisoned, right? Leaving your life without the necessary defense that it's supposed to have, right? A garrison is troops that occupy a certain area, whether it's inside of a building or inside of the gates or the walls. They defend and they're ready to go to war with whatever is coming up against what's inside that they are protecting. And sin, if it goes unchecked, leaves our lives without the necessary defense that it needs. Simply put, sin hinders us from living a life of self-control, right? That's very important. And eventually our lives are unguarded without the necessary defenses. We got to take things seriously. And I think a lot of times we simply refuse to do that. We don't want to take things too seriously. One of the things is I've learned over the years is that people don't take life serious enough. Right? It's a game. We keep going around the same mountain over and over and over, and we don't realize that if we don't get off at the next off ramp, sooner or later there will not be an off ramp to get off on. Speaking of control, the word translated here, right, this is Bible Hub, says it evokes the idea of restraint, control, or governance. The term is set in contrast to a breached, wall-less city, picturing the human spirit as a fortified place that requires protective boundaries. When those boundaries are absent or compromised, the whole person is exposed to invasion, disorder, and eventual ruin. Right, I want you to pay attention to what it's talking about. It's saying that the human spirit is a fortified place that must be protected. And if it's not, if those boundaries are absent or compromised, that means the whole person is going to be messed up. All kind of things are going to get in. And eventually, right, the ordered life that I talked about at the beginning that's possible, now that other possibility is in place where you're living a disordered life full of inner chaos and all kind of other things because you've been invaded by things that you would really like to keep up out of your life. And eventually your life comes to ruin. That's what happens when neglect abounds, right? But what happens when defenses collapse, right? When the collapse happens, when the wall falls, when the breach happens, it's almost too late. It may not be any recovery in one's life if we're not careful, especially in a life that doesn't have God, right? If we're being honest. But the word translated, right, this verb here, dealing with this collapsed wall, it pictures a sudden, vigorous busting of boundaries, right? Physical, numerical, military, spiritual, whether they're walls, enemies, flocks, national borders, or anything that restrains, is shown yielding to a power greater than itself, right? Eventually, that pressure does what? Burst pipes, right? Eventually, it's going to happen. Putting too much on it without patching up the holes, without repairing the wall over here, without taking care of this anger issue that I got, eventually something is going to seep in and things happen. If you notice, though it seems sudden, there must be neglect over time for something like this to happen in our lives. It's kind of like that rock that hits your windshield and it leaves a little small crack, and over time it's spreading all throughout your windshield. It's like that, the foundation of your home that's shifting, and you begin to get those cracks up your wall, and then you have cracks in your ceiling, and your house begins to shift. It's like the description of Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, where he talks about the person who built their house on the sand. Excuse me. That when the winds and the waves, they came, there was a great fall, great crash, great collapse of the structure. But there's trouble when we begin to look at the aftermath. What does it look like after that wall has been breached in our lives, when we're supposed to be protecting our spirit man, when we're supposed to be protecting our mental, when we're supposed to be protecting our souls from things that would corrupt it? What does the aftermath look like? Speaking concerning human vulnerability, I want you to see what Bible Hub says. So Bible Hub is just simply a website, right? I look at Bible Hub, Blue Letter Bible. I also have Logos Bible software, whatever you need. I use commentaries, Bible, study Bibles, whatever I can to open up the text more. But Bible Hub says this. It says, breaches speak of moral collapse. Moral collapse. Those private, unchecked sins, they become public sins, right? The things you do in private, right? If it's not discipline and study and all of those different things that you can do to build up character, you begin to do those things that are opposite, that downgrades your credit, your character, that it begins to get to the point to the stuff that you were hiding, you're doing it out in the open and don't even notice that you're doing it in the open. The integrity and the outstanding character you were once known for now is questionable at best. Excuse me. Used to be known as a trustworthy individual that people that could count on. You used to be the one that people could take their secrets to and they wouldn't be spewed out to everybody. That used to be you. But now, with the breach and all kind of other things come in, you can't be trusted to be told anything. Now you're slandering any and everybody. The picture is of our inner man now contaminated and corrupted with all forms of ungodliness. That's the picture we have here. So the question you need to ask yourself is, What areas do you lack self-control? Is it anger? A lot of us try to pretend like we don't have anger issues. We don't have anger problems. But I guarantee you people around you know about it. Is it your sexual desires all out of whack? Are we living up to it according to God's standard? Or are we just saying, I'm going to do what I want, when I want, how I want to do things? Again, are we slandering other people's name without any type of evidence? Are our lives saturated with pride and nobody could tell us anything, and we think too highly of ourselves while we're pushing other people, we're pushing them down? Or maybe you just crave attention and notoriety, and it's about being looked at. See, that's one of the biggest issues out here when it comes to social media. Once we've seen some people have success from being in front of their phone or in front of their camera, now it's like, man, I want to do some of that too. Maybe I can start getting people to come to my page, and maybe I can. There's healthy versions of that, but then there are unhealthy versions that when you cut your phone off or when you're off of social media, you begin to see yourself in a way that God doesn't see you. And that causes you to do all kinds of things. But this is one thing I do know, that an active obedience to Jesus's way is what will ultimately keep us in this world. An active obedience to his way is what is going to keep us. Lastly, let me read this last quote from Bible Hub. It says, personal walls must not be neglected. Spiritual disciplines reinforce the life that sin would otherwise fracture. Our personal walls, they can't be neglected. We have to be watchful. We have to be paying attention. We have to be on the lookout for anything that may try to breach those walls. People, places, things. So many things that try to corrupt. Ideas, false teachings, all of these things come in and try to corrupt. But spiritual disciplines, right? We take the time. There are so many, but I'll name a few. Fasting, right? Certain principles that we hold to, right? Not letting your left hand know what the right hand is doing, right? Not being open about everything we do when we decide to bless. You do understand that's a discipline to not worry about everybody seeing me bless this person or to bless this family. There are many things. Enter into a time of prayer and fasting and silence and solitude. There are many different things in many different ways we can discipline ourselves to make sure that we rule over our bodies and our minds and the sin that's trying to get a hold of our life, keeping it out. Because if it don't, that sin will fracture our lives. And it's that simple. We can pretend like we got it together and we don't need any help from anybody else. Or we can take heed when wisdom is being given to us that we may lead productive lives within society. Because ultimately, nobody wants to leave this place not having affected it for the good. Nobody does. And as always, grace, mercy, and peace be with you.